Buenos días, good morning, everyone. Well, just because I'd like to present who I am. Many of you know me. I'm José Luis Córdoba, Managing Director of Andalucia Lab. And as you know, we are trying to help SMEs all throughout Andalusia with, well, to incorporate to the internet, to incorporate tech to their companies. And also we are helping travel tech companies to market their services in the region. And well, since last year, we started also to try to help these travel tech companies to market their services and to understand what is happening not only inside the region but also all throughout mainly Europe. And when Laura from the EU SME Centre contacted us, we really understood that this was a very interesting opportunity to connect our incipient community of SMEs with a very interesting market that is really the aim of this event. So, as you know, Andalucia Lab try to facilitate these connections with tech, with knowledge, and with markets. So, well, for us, it's a pleasure to having Laura Velasco from the EU SME Centre. Well, she will explain later, but I think that very specialized in helping SMEs all throughout Europe to market their services and to learn more about the China market, and well, also with a very interesting expert that Laura will present. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are not many of us, but we know that you are very interesting, and we hope that this will be useful for all of you. So thank you very much, and Laura, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jose Luis. Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for making yourself available to join us today. Before we start with the content of today's presentation, I would like to take a few minutes of your time, 4 or 5 minutes, just to introduce you who we are and how we can help you to access the Chinese market. Allow me to share my screen first. I believe you will be able to see it shortly.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, the EU SME Centre is an EU-funded initiative. We started in 2010 with the goal of supporting those SMEs that are intending to access the Chinese market. We are a public funded initiative. That means that all the services we offer are for free. We are running now until March 2022, and there will be a next phase of the project running from March until 2024. We partner with different government agencies and business support organizations, both in Europe and in China, in order to meet, let's say, to provide our services to our target companies. We have an office in Beijing and one office in Brussels, from where I'm talking today. And the project is implemented by 5 different organizations that you can see at the bottom of the screen. In terms of services, we provide 4 blocks of services. Again, all of them are free of charge, and you can see them in the screen. The first one is the Knowledge Center. Here we provide, we offer market reports and different market documentation that helps you to understand better the different markets in China. Some of the reports are very transversal. So we talk about, for instance, digital marketing and cross-border e-commerce that can be applied in different types of industries. But also we have some specific market reports talking about food and beverage market. Also within the food and beverage market, different products. We talk about wine, we talk about alcoholic drinks, we talk about meat, seafood, etc. And some others that are more into the manufacturing and industrial side. You only have to log in or register on our website in order to be able to access all these market reports and to download them. The second block is called the Advice Center, and here we have two main services. The first one is the self-diagnosis tool. This is a very new service that we are providing since the beginning of this year. The self-diagnosis tool, it's an app, an application online that helps you to gauge your level of readiness towards the market. It's based on artificial intelligence with very advanced and new algorithm. So the system asks you questions about the status of your company towards the Chinese market. And at the end, after replying to several questions, the system will tell you how far you are from ideal and how you can improve your knowledge towards the market. We invite you all to test your knowledge and to understand how far you are from ideal. By the way, the rating goes from 0 to 100%, and we give you recommendations also cross recommending with other projects of the European Commission. As well, we have kind of whole hotline or helpline where we actually we reply questions asked by our users. This could relate to business development, to human resources, to standards and conformity, to legal and corporate law, etc. And our experts usually take 2 to 3 working days to give answers to your questions. The third service are the trainings. We try to plug the knowledge and skill gaps of SMEs trying to enter the Chinese market. Today is a good example of what we are doing. Of course, the topics we cover here for European SMEs are slightly different than the topics we cover in China for SMEs that are already operating in the market. And we try to sift or create the balance between online and offline activities. Now that we see that things are improving slightly in the COVID framework, we will try to organize more hybrid events in Europe in order to boost the networking and to take advantage of this bigger openness of the market. And last but not least, we also have an advocacy platform where we try to give voice to the concerns and requests of the European SMEs operating in China. Here we try to create some, let's say, like a unique voice where we and then we talk to the authorities both in China and in Europe in trying to improve the situation and the regulation and to make it more privileged for the European SMEs, more than it is. We also have an inter-chamber SME working group where we try to provide information on the regulatory, economic and social changes that are happening on daily basis in China. Now, before we start, this was a technical reminder, but it was for Zoom. I can see that everybody's actually in the room and you can ask questions to Alt. In order not to, let's say, impact the rhythm of the event, we are going to gather all the questions and send them to him at the end of the session, where there will be a Q&A. But please do not wait until the end so that we can better coordinate and ensure that your question is being replied. Now, about the expert, Dr. Wolfgang George Alt. He is a frequent expert of the EU SME Centre. This is actually the second activity we're organizing with him this year, just trying to help those SMEs operating in the ICT and tourism sector to start preparing for the new normal. Dr. Wolfgang has a very long experience in China. As you could see, his China adventure started a long time ago, before some of us even were born. He has been living and working between China and Germany all this time. He has created COTRI, which is his company, which stands for China Outbound Tourism Research and Institute. And he is also a professor in different universities, including one based in Germany. I'm going to stop here talking about Dr. Wolfgang, because I'm sure that he will be explaining you more about his parkour and his experience. So now, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will leave the floor to Professor Wolfgang. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Laura, for the nice introduction, and thank you, Andalucia, for hosting this whole event. And I'm very happy to join you this morning in Europe or this afternoon in China. As Laura just said, so this is the second part, so to say, of talking about China and the tourism development in China. In the first part, we have been concentrating mostly on the questions on what will be the future demands and expectations of the Chinese travelers post-pandemic and how to adapt products. And this time we are focusing more on the question of how to bring the message across, how to use marketing. And so, of course, that means for China mostly online marketing, and certainly at the moment there it is impossible for Western organizations to join fairs or to have promotion tours, and so therefore, of course, it is even more than before all online. So, and also as Laura said, so we will try to make this interactive. So if you have questions, so type them down, and we will see that we can answer them either during the session, or if there are many questions, we can also do this afterwards and send the answer to you by email. And also important to say, don't worry, you don't have to listen just to me for the whole time. I have invited 3 of my colleagues who will give you some best practice examples. So with this, let me try to share my screen. Let's see if this is working. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, and I have to collapse these boxes here so that they're not in the way.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that should work very well. So now to move, yes. Okay, so I don't have to say anything about myself anymore. That has been already done, and so maybe just to say, so I stopped being an active professor last year. So I retired from my university job to fully concentrate on country, and also maybe something which is worth mentioning, that at the bottom you can see that I'm also the founding dean of the HATT Business School Institute. So I'm still, of course, in education, which is based in London and Dubai, but it's basically online. So we are also offering specific training for many different topics. The institute itself exists since 2004. And so in the 1990s, I was a tour operator myself. And when I started to be a full-time professor, I tried to keep the knowledge alive and to distribute the knowledge about the Chinese outbound market. At that time, of course, everybody was thinking that I'm hopping mad and talking about China as a source market for tourism. People were thinking, okay, we go to China, but the Chinese being our customers, the Chinese coming to Europe, to other places, impossible. As we all know, well, it happened quite quickly after that. And now we can see with the pandemic for many countries how big the gap is, how big the holes are, which are now there, as we have no more Chinese tourists coming to visit us. So for Spain, for instance, we had 2019, we had 700,000 arrivals. That was already an interesting part of the market. And for the destinations in the region, of course, for places like Hong Kong or Thailand or South Korea, this has been a real catastrophe, that the Chinese were not traveling. And when they will start to travel again, well, we will discuss about this a bit later. So the agenda, so we will talk about a bit how's the situation as we are speaking, and we can have a short Q&A session if you have questions. Otherwise, we do this at the end. And then the second part will be about what are the consequences, or what are new approaches. And so two words already are here. The one is live streaming as one of the new developments in China, and the other is KOCs, so key opinion customers, which are replacing KOLs So and now actually people start to discuss even about COLs, so which is people who are cultural influencers. So we will see. We will talk about that. And then we will have in the module three companies giving us examples of best practices. And at the end, I will show you one example, also a best practice example, how to combine online and offline channels for a hopefully very successful marketing. And at the end, so you can see we have reserved some time for Q&A. And I put on this slide maybe the answer to the most urgent question everybody is asking when we talk about online marketing, we talk about social media in China. So what are the most important ones? And well, we talk about more about this, but you can see that there are probably three of them you have heard about. WeChat, which has a staggering 1.2 billion daily active users, which means practically everybody in China. And we have Douyin, which is we know as TikTok, with 700 million daily active users. And we have maybe still remember Weibo, which was, let's say, before WeChat, which is still very active. But there are also two. I'm not sure if you have already heard about this. One is Kuaishou, and the other is Xiaohongshu, Little Red Book. Those are the big climbers during the pandemic, and so we will see how fast this development is during this presentation today. So just to give you some background, well, as we are aware, China, outbound tourism from China, there has been a booming economy, and we have more and more rich people in China, upper middle class and upper class people who can afford to travel outbound, and the government's easing of its control over outbound mobility, so that especially from the late 1990s, it has become very easy for Chinese to leave the country. As we all know, not at the moment, but between the 1990s and 2019, there was no problem until SARS-2 COVID-19 has been putting a hold on this. So in the pandemic, so the Chinese economy recovered faster than all the other G20 countries in the last year, but as you can see on the right-hand side, so these are current statistics from The Economist. The party is over at the moment in China, so the growth rates have been coming down. Industrial production is down a lot again. So we have heard probably about Evergrande, big real estate company going bankrupt. We had a lot of energy shortages in most of the provinces where factories had to stop production for some days of the year. A lot of our heroes, Alibaba, Tencent, Meituan, they all have been told by the government that they should not grow too fast and become too powerful, and they have been cut down a bit. And of course, we also can see that the relations between China and the rest of the world have been not improving, to say the least, in the last months. Still, for the upper 10% of the Chinese society, those are the people who have a passport. Those are the people who are financially able to travel. So they are all very keen to start traveling abroad again as soon as three conditions are met. One is availability of visa. So at the moment, most of the European countries are not letting Chinese in because the Chinese vaccine has not been recognized yet in the European Union. and well, the existence of air connections. Of course, at the moment there are only few flights and they're very expensive, and the trust, most of all, the trust in the safety of the travel, and that Chinese feel confident about traveling to those places. But with 2.2 billion vaccines administered in China, so that is something which should become less of a concern. Again, we will talk about this a bit later. So the recovery, the slowing of the recovery, you can see on the right-hand side in this graph, because mostly probably if you follow this the news, we always talk about the GDP growth year on year, and already that was going down to 5.9% for the third quarter. But actually, if you compare this GDP growth quarter by quarter, so then it's even worse. We can see that actually in 2021 there has been as good as no growth in the Chinese economy, and even for the last quarter there was even a negative development of 0.2%. So this is one development, and on the other hand, you see the graph at the right-hand bottom. So LinkedIn it was the only big Western social media platform which was still active in China, but also they have decided to go away from China and not to follow the increasing demands for censorship by the Chinese government. And so this is in line with a lot of very much increased control over the online content, and you may have seen the news that Chinese under 18 are only allowed 3 hours a week to play online games, and this is controlled with IDs and even face recognition. So for those clever kids who have been using the ID of the parents, there will be a face recognition which says, oh, this face doesn't look like a 45-year-old person, rather like a 15-year-old person, and then you can't access these video games. And we can see that Xi Jinping thought is now taught in all schools, starting from kindergarten and many schools. This has been replacing English classes, especially foreigners are not allowed anymore to teach English in China. So there is a lot of things happening, not all from my point of view necessarily for the better, but clearly still Chinese are eager to travel, and Chinese are eager to see the world. Even so, the support of the government for international travel is not as pronounced anymore as it used to be. So, of course, when we talk about tourism, and I just took out one voice here, my dear friend Dr. Talib Rifai, who used to be the SG of UNWTO, is now the SG of the WTFI World Tourism Forum Institute, who has been saying there is no return to the old normal, but we have to move forward to a new, better normal. So tourism has been developing very much in a quantitative way and not in a qualitative way, and there is the opportunity to get things better. So we have to keep in mind that we have now 5 times the number of trips we had in 2019 compared to 1980, and so there was the destructive side of tourism have been becoming apparent ever more, and this idea that we are a force of fun and entertainment and easy jobs without much investment, and also maybe even of peace by helping people to meet each other. This was in the discussion overtaken by the over-tourism discussion, and the question, is it really necessary that all the Germans use aircraft to fly to Mallorca for their beach holiday? Why don't they stay on the German beaches? And the idea that tourism is something bad is something polluting and unnecessary had been coming up in the discussions before the pandemic struck. So therefore, this is a good opportunity to see how we can change tourism and how we can tell the different story also in our marketing about why you travel, what you do, and to try to develop a more sustainable approach, something which what we call meaningful tourism. So that's just for a brief introduction. So what's the current situation? So we have to remember that Chinese outbound tourism is a rather recent development. So it was only starting, you can say, about 20 years ago, and has been developing very fast. And in 2016, more than half of the, at that time, 137 million border crossings went further than Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, so that even if we don't count these Greater China areas as international travel, still China was the #1 source market in the world. And as a result, it became easier and easier for Chinese citizens to travel because many places offered e-visa or visa on arrival, or even visa-free travel, like in Europe. Some countries like Serbia and Albania offered this. And also in almost all destinations, you could have multiple entry visa. Only Schengen area, we were about the only ones where you still had to fill out a form each and every time. So in numbers, you can see there was a continuous growth, and the growth in the last few years was the yellow part, or the trips going beyond Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. And then we see 2020 and also 2021, our forecast, where this dramatically dropped. So the only destination for Chinese to go to still is Macau, where you can travel without having to go to quarantine when you come back. But you can see that our forecast for 2022 is rather on the optimistic side, that we will come back to 120 million trips, and by 2023, I think we will reach again the level we had before. Saying that, of course, it depends on the further development of the pandemic. If there are some bad surprises around the corner, of course, we don't know that. So where have been the Chinese in Europe traveling to? So we can see that most of the trips were to Western Europe and to Central and Eastern Europe, and Northern and Southern Europe had rather smaller numbers of arrivals. And okay, I think, and just to keep in mind that when we talk about the Chinese, we are not talking about the majority of Chinese people. We talk about the top 10%, and within that, when we talk about luxury tourists, we talk rather about the 1% of the population, and these are people who are still rich. Maybe they have not been getting richer so fast than before, and most of the income has not come from their wages, but from real estate business and stock market dealings. So there was a number published a few days ago saying that from the 1990s to last year, the real estate value in Shanghai grew by 2,000%. So if you were lucky enough to have some money to play this game from the 1990s, and buy and sell apartments, that made you into a millionaire, quite certainly. So, but even if we talk about 1% of the population, if you look at the bottom line, so that is still a million people, And if people have more than that is more than 1 million income per year, and if we go a bit up, so and we say, okay, everybody who has more than 120,000 renminbi, that is already 70 million people. That is almost the population of Germany. So, but for many products, and that's what we talked about last time, where we say, okay, yeah, do the Chinese people, are they interested in this or that? It doesn't matter if 90% of the Chinese are interested in this or not. They don't have the money to travel, at least not long haul. So therefore, we have to concentrate on the top 10% of the market. So what we could see already up to 2019, there was already some development which have been moving forward. So the strong sophistication of the travelers based on growing experience, that they know what they want because they have tried out different things. More special interest trips because they have taken off the main attractions and now follow more what they are really interested in, and that may be playing golf or gastronomy, tourism, or whatever. Also that we could see already up to 2019 that more kids and more senior travelers were joining the party, and then also more people from the lower tier cities started to travel internationally. Clearly, what was there and what has been improving a lot during the pandemic was the level of information available. So many organizations used Chinese social media, what we will talk about, to give information, and especially during the pandemic, all this 3D virtual tours in museums and so on have increased the level of information even more. And last but not least, if you don't speak as a Chinese tourist, if you don't speak English or Spanish or whatever, there are now machines which can help you. You speak in Chinese into the machine, and the machine speaks Spanish or whatever you're choosing. So this was all very nice, but it was more or less a dead end we were moving into, because we had growing numbers of arrivals. At the same time, the European market share actually was getting smaller, so we were not growing as fast as the total market. But most importantly, so we had higher numbers of arrivals, but the Chinese customers were not happy. In many cases, the local populations were not happy, and the companies were earning not very much money, because if you have the same kind of product, the distinction is only about price. And so this concentration on arrival numbers has not been very useful. I can give an example. In Germany, the arrival numbers have been growing, but the average overnight, the average length of stay, the number of overnights, has been decreasing in the last decade from 2.1 nights to 1.8 nights. So if you would have the no growth in arrivals, but a growth in the length of stay, that of course would make more sense from an ecological way, but also you would earn more money. So China and the pandemic. And the first sentence might surprise you. China has not suffered seriously from SARS-CoV-2. So we saw that in the first 4 months of 2020, we had about up to 5,000 people in China dying, and then there were 4 more people dying between April 2020 and January 2021. And since the end of January 2021, not a single person in China has died from the virus. So there might be a few cases which are unreported somewhere in the countryside, but it is probably right to say that in the last 18 months, more Chinese died from accidents by being run over by a water buffalo than from COVID-19. And on the right hand side you see the scale. So there was a fast development of people dying, but then since April 2020 there was practically nobody dying anymore from COVID-19. Still, China is very, very strict in its policy, and except North Korea and Turkmenistan, no other country is still following the zero-case policy. Australia and New Zealand, who tried to do this, have been saying that they will give this up by the end of the year. And China has been very strongly trying to demonstrate to their own population that they have everything under control, thanks to the leadership of the Communist Party, whereas outside in the rest of the world, all these democratic countries don't get their acts together. And so if there have been, and there have been, of course, always outbreaks of COVID-19, that has been always labeled as imported cases coming through the harbors and so on. So, and if there was even a single case, we had two times two of the biggest harbors in the world in China were closed. And even if there some big cities were put under lockdown again, just for after a few cases occurred. So by now, last week, so China has administered about 2.23 billion doses of their own vaccines, so which is about 1/3 of all the vaccines in the world. And so 80% of the population are now fully vaccinated, and the vaccines have been approved by the World Health Organization and in many countries, but not yet in all countries, as I said, including the European Union. We have not yet approved that Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines are officially recognized. So when will the Chinese stop this zero-case policy, which is really something like a fool sitting on the side of a river and say, I want to cross the river, but for that I'm just waiting until the water stops flowing. The water will never stop flowing. So it was interesting to see that 2 weeks ago, the China Daily had an article quoting Mr. Gao, who is the head of the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So the, I don't know, Dr. Fauci of China. And he said in an interview, which was also shown on television, that if the vaccination rate can reach more than 85%, which will be in December or January 2022, then by that time, why shouldn't we open up? So this is the first time that a government official has been saying this, and obviously giving the status of Chinese media, if this is in Chinese TV and China Daily. This is not his personal opinion, but so that is seems to point to a change in the policy. So that's the government side. What's on the side of the travelers? So on the right hand side, you can see a nice graph which was done by our colleagues from Dragon Trail. So they did last month a sentiment report where they asked people, okay, when will you start to, or what are the prerequisites for you to travel outbound? And you can see, for instance, the yellow one is saying, when I'm fully vaccinated in China, then 52% say this is when I can start to travel. And the other yellow button says when at least 80% of destinations population is vaccinated, which for many European countries is already the case, then that already is enough for almost half of the Chinese outbound travelers to say, okay, then I dare to start traveling. And of course, if there are when the official travel advice allows outbound travel, 3/4 of the Chinese outbound travelers say, yeah, then certainly I want to travel again outbound. So we have 1/4 of people still saying, oh, I'm cautious, I'm afraid I might better stay in China for some time. But 3 out of 4 people say yes, once it is officially said it's okay again to travel, then I will start traveling again. And so that's from the same sentiment report. You can see what is the different ideas. So there's the blue one. These are the people who are eager to travel, who are saying, okay, as soon as possible, I will travel. And so whereas the red ones, the more cautious, are saying, okay, if I travel, I will want to avoid crowds, and I will be try to travel as safely as possible. Whereas the from those people who are still concerned, they, even within them, there is only smaller group saying I won't travel, and many people say maybe I will travel less. So even in this group, doesn't mean that all of these people will not travel at all. And also what you can see was mentioned here in many cases is that people want to travel more to see nature, and family trips are getting more important. So there are changes in the way Chinese will travel after the borders are opening up again. So, and of course, to know about this, well, a good idea is to look at the development of the domestic tourism in China, which has been going up and down in these 2 years. So we had by spring 2021, so in April and May, we actually had levels of hotel nights and also of domestic air ticket sales, which were beyond the numbers in 2019. But in the last few months, there were new cases and new restrictions, so that just the latest, the first week of October, the October Golden Week, national holiday, we were down to 70% about of the trips of 2019 and about 60% of the spending. And that's because there is a lot of, as you can see on the left-hand side, staycations, so people just traveling within their own city or their own province, and more self-drive trips, so less people flying, more people using a car or a recreational vehicle, a caravan, which is less expensive, and clearly more nature and outdoor activities, and also interesting, more traveling with family members or friends, so not with strangers. And also during the pandemic, certainly the value of having solidarity within the family has been coming to the mind of people more clearly than maybe before. And the last point, I think, which is very important, is that it used to be the case that if people were traveling domestically, that was seen as a sign that they are too poor or maybe not sophisticated enough to travel internationally. And if you wanted to gain prestige, then it had to be international travel. But this has also changed, that now to travel domestically, as the Chinese found out, oh, there are a lot of interesting places we never heard about in our own country, and also a lot of new attractions and new crazy things have been built. Like in the north, in Harbin, you have now a North Pole hotel where you have real life polar bears you can see from your window in the courtyard and stuff like that. So that, and also it has become politically correct. So there is a movement called Guochun, so buy Chinese brands, and therefore also this traveling within China is something which is seen as politically correct, though, which means that for Europe, we would have to compete not only with other international destinations, but also now we have to compete with destinations in China. So from on the luxury level, of course, also a lot of Chinese people have money in their pocket, which they could not spend on international travel last year and this year. So we can see that there is already a demand, according to the Chinese tour operators, for very expensive tours, including gourmet tours from one star-rated restaurant to the other one, adventure tourism, and also other nature activities. And finally, well, not forget that not all the Chinese travelers are leisure travelers. There's also, of course, many Chinese waiting to come to Europe for business or to see their kids studying here or being students who want to start studying face-to-face again with universities coming up. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's also from the sentiment survey that, so especially when traveling outbound, culture tourism and rural tourism and outdoor sports and concerts all are more important than they are when traveling domestically. So, for instance, outdoor sports, I think is quite impressive. Only 10% of Chinese say, okay, I want to travel for outdoor sports in China, but 34% say, I want to do some outdoor sports when I'm traveling abroad. And also it's interesting to see that when we talk about Chinese outbound tourists, think about women. So there are more ladies traveling outbound, or have been until 2019 at least, than there are men, especially for leisure tourism. So for business tourism, there was a majority of male travelers, but for leisure tourism, there was a majority of female travelers. But also, you can see that, for instance, in the question of trying local foods when traveling outbound, 68% of the men say, yeah, that's what I want to do, but 78% of the ladies are saying so. Or the same, for instance, rural tourism when traveling outbound, it's 38 to 48. So women are on average more adventurous and daring and more interested in new offers and new experiences. So coming to the question, okay, how is the situation of ICT companies in China as of October 2021? And you see some of the most important ones with their logos here. Well, I'm sure you have followed that in the news, that the Chinese government has started this year to fight with the big tech companies for the control of data, for the control of information flow, the control of also money flow. And that started at the end of last year, that Alibaba was getting into trouble and that the IPO was suspended by Chinese regulators just one day before the event. So that was supposed to be the biggest IPO in the world ever done. So that was quite a shock for many people. And from that, you had Meituan, the largest delivery service app, which also does a lot of other things, was investigated. And in July, Didi, what is the Uber version in China, was cut down just a few days after the IPO in the United States. And Baidu, the search engine, JD, another distribution company, Tencent, so WeChat, Bilibili, and other companies have also come under scrutiny. And in the last 2 weeks, all these tech companies had to voluntarily, obviously, give billions of dollars because Xi Jinping's new policy of common prosperity, of redistributing money from the top rich people to the poorer people, they had to show that they are supporting this campaign. So there is certainly in the last few months during this year, there has been a big change in the importance and the independence of the Chinese social media companies. And well, just to remind you, the National Intelligence Law was already issued in 2017, and it says any organization shall support, assist, and cooperate with the state intelligence work in accordance with the law. So that means that no company in China, no company operating in China is allowed to withhold any information from the Chinese government. So that is the situation as it is now. If there are any questions right away, so please feel free to ask. Laura, any questions which have come to you?
Hello, Alt. One question: are we gonna jump now into the other participants, or you will continue just with the other part of the presentation?
No, there's one more part of the presentation, yes.
So perhaps what we can do is we will compress everything in the Q&A all together.
Okay, good. If there's
Go
no
on.
urgent question, then let's do that. Okay, very good. So after giving some overview, what is the situation? And I think it's a very volatile situation. And after the last few years, when there was this success stories of Alibaba and Tencent, so that we can see that in China things are moving fast, and in the end, it is the government deciding what is happening. But it is also on the development that the Chinese netizens, so people using the internet, are getting more experienced and are getting wiser over time. So, and one example is that this development from KOL to KOC. So, key opinion leaders, KOLs, which are celebrities, singers, movie actors, or also the bosses of big companies themselves, have been very successful in advertising products for luxury brands or for their company. But we can see that especially the top 500 influencers have, according to some statistics in China, have made less money now than, and are less in demand now than they have been before. And again, here the government has some of them who seem to have a too powerful a following, have made sure that they are disappearing from the social media basically overnight. But the key point is that it has become obvious more and more that these people are not saying, I like this soap or I like this destination because they think that's what they think, but simply because they are paid for that. So that this is also not more than advertisement. Whereas KOCs, key opinion customers, are seen as much more important. So these are basically private persons telling their friends and their family, their colleagues, that this is what they like, and they are supported by companies, and so that is also, of course, for destinations a good idea to support these people, to give them a platform, or in some cases even pay them with maybe not with, the first case with money, but with some free trips or discounted trips, or rather something like you would treat journalists. But so that you have somebody who is traveling in a place and is happy about this, that you have these influencers. And in China, well, networking is everything. So these KOCs might have in their own WeChat groups or whatever they're using, or Xiaohongshu groups, 1,000 or maybe up to 5,000 contacts. And the difference is that these people will be believed in, so because if you tell your friends that's great, you don't want to tell them a lie only because you're paid for it, so that people will believe much more that this is really what people think. And also the likelihood that the friends of somebody with enough money to travel to Europe, let's say, are also people with enough money to travel to Europe is quite high. So you're reaching maybe a limited number of people, but you're reaching your potential customers. It doesn't help you to reach 50 million people in China who never have enough money to actually come and visit us here, let's say, in Europe. And this is a development which during the pandemic has been accelerating that. So KOCs are seen as a trustworthy source of information, whereas KOLs are not. And of course, some of the KOCs are Chinese people living in Europe. And if you want to find out, for instance, do the people in Madrid or in Sevilla throw stones at Chinese and shout at them that you brought the virus, or like you have seen in America, or is this not the case? So if you ask the Andalusia Tourism Board or some officials, they will all say, no, of course not. We are friends, and but is this true or not? Who knows? Of course they will say so. So for that you will need a KOC, somebody you can trust, and say, hey, tell me the truth. Are the people in Sevilla, if they see a Chinese, are they saying, oh, these are the guys who brought us a virus, or is this not in the mind of the people? That is one example for a key information you only can get from people you are really trusting. So the other point, of course, is also that the KOLs have been very expensive and have become more and more expensive, and so ever embroiled in scandals. There was recently a case of somebody was accused, so Chinese Me Too was accused of raping followers and fans and so on. So the platform for KOCs, first of all, is Little Red Book, Xiaohongshu, and because this is, they not only chose the content from the accounts users follow, but also you can have themes and hashtags related to the content you're viewing. So therefore, if you're lucky, you can have a post which only has a few hundred followers, but that can go viral and millions of people can see that. So especially for millennials, for all the young people who have a lot of experience with media and with consumerism, that will be something you can actually use as a way to reach them. So in a nutshell, Chinese travelers follow the information they can find online from peers, to some extent from KOLs, and to an increasing extent from KOCs. Whereas running a Weibo or WeChat account as a platform for user-generated content provided by Chinese living in the destination can provide a limited effect by showing the engagement for the market, but using such accounts to post your own marketing materials produced by the NTO or the DMO is mostly a waste of money. So because if you're a smaller destination and you're one voice among 10,000 and you start your own WeChat account, yeah, you will have, I don't know, 500 people following, and those are the people who know about you anyway. You're preaching to the gospel to those who are already members of your church, so that is not a good idea. So WeChat, in many cases, if you use it not for user-generated content, but for your own content, is probably the least effective way to do social media marketing in China. So in the end, it is simply word of mouth, which now in China is word of mouths, computer mouse as well. So, and it's much better to increase the quality of your product and maybe work with some KOCs than than producing nice videos which nobody is watching. So, and well, last time we have been talking more about product adaptation, but that is just here. It's also we can see that this development from B2C to C2C to now C2M, so consumer to manufacturer approach, has been playing an important role in the tourism marketing for China in the way that it's turns around from well, we have this touristic resource, we have this cathedral, we have this landscape. How do we sell this? Or a little bit of market segmentation. Okay, what do the old people in China want to do? To a C2M approach, where really you find out what the different market segments, what they are really looking for. And we did a study earlier this year for Spain, for Tour España, and so we found that there were, for many destinations, what the organizers of the DMOs thought Chinese people would look at, which were the normal major sites, and what we found in the Chinese social media on the travel portals like Mapanbo and QYR, what people were actually discussing as the main attractions was not the same at all. So that the DMOs had no clue about what really their customers, their visitors were actually looking at, and so. One example for this are the pink lakes, and I encountered actually this 2 times. So I was in 2019, I was in Southern Iran, and I also was in Western Australia, and in both places there was a lake which at some time of the year, I think in springtime, had an algae blooming, which turned the lake, especially at sunrise and sunset, into a pink colored lake. And this was something where the Chinese, somebody found this, some blogger wrote about this, and all the Chinese wanted to go there and see the pink lakes. And the locals were not even knowing what they were talking about. It was not a local attraction at all. So that is where the an example for a C2M approach, where you are carefully listening to what your customers want, and never mind if you say, yeah, but this pink lake is not part of our culture, tradition, or whatever. If that's what the customers are looking for, give it to them. So as we have been seeing that in the last years, a lot of concentration was on promotion rather than on quality and differentiation of the products. So the result was that Chinese visitors would go from one place to another in a quick succession, and that price was a major argument if you go to this place or that place. So, and as we said at the beginning, with the pandemic, we have a chance maybe to take a step back and see how can we concentrate on quality and thereby satisfaction, and from satisfaction comes recommendation, and in the end there is a higher yield that you rather spend your money on training your staff, on adapting your products, and supporting the destination marketing of your customers, rather than giving your money to some Chinese agencies who tell you, yeah, we will do social media marketing for you, where you cannot control at all how much return on investment comes from that. So we have this weekly rankings of the activities of NTOs, and so this is a current example now from October, at a time when a lot of Chinese tourists are interested again to plan their next year trip. So this is not that there's a lack of interest in tourism information, but if you look at this ranking, so this is the top 20 out of 56 NTOs, what has been happening on WeChat, and you can see there's only one post from Tourismania, congratulations, which had more than 20,000 views, and 5 more which have more than 10,000. But if you look at the likes, so even Tourismania only got 462 likes, and the others are just a couple of hundreds. So yeah, this is nice numbers. If you compare this to other numbers of WeChat posts from Chinese celebrities or other important people, we have millions of views. So if this is content provided by the DMOs, by the NTOs, this is, as we said, in most cases, a waste of money. So recommendation marketing is much more powerful and also much cheaper. So I think this is a key point, and also, of course, it is yeah, I think we looking at the time, we skipped that. Also, it is changing so fast. So Kuaishou, as we mentioned before, which is for short videos. So nobody was talking about Kuaishou 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and just within the pandemic, it became much more important, and you can see that between the second quarter of 2020 and the second quarter of 2021, so within 1 year, not only the number of daily users increased, but also the time they spend, and accordingly the revenue more than doubled, and from online marketing it was plus 156%. So so that this is something which now when you talk about, okay, I want to talk to people, especially as you can see from the age structure, not the very young people, but the majority of the users are between 21 and 40, so rather middle-aged people, then Kuaishou is very important now. And but again, who knows, in 1 year or 2 years, it might be that it is not important anymore, and something else has come up instead. So there is the landscape is so diverse and so fast developing, and so there is on the left hand side you can see a typical daily user's journey in China, and it starts with 6 o'clock in the morning, wake up, and so the first thing is, of course, to check your Weibo account and your WeChat account, what's happening there, and then while you're going to work, you might look at some news or some Kuaishou stuff, and then you use WeChat to buy your breakfast, and well, you will have your Starbucks app to pre-order and then pick up your coffee, and so on and so on. And for example, if we look at all this, so we still have going back to the right hand side, at the bottom up there is still news channels. So you still have Toutiao and other news channels, but they have become much less important than they used to be a couple of years ago, again because the Chinese government has been cutting down these news channels, and also channels which were showing international news, international movies, all this has been cut down. Online gaming has been cut down a lot. So in this typical daily user's journey in China, so you have now some elements, we just mentioned Kuaishou, which were not important 2 years ago, and you have others which were very important 2 years ago, which have more or less disappeared or have become at least much less important than they used to be. So therefore, to work with Chinese social media, you really have to know for your target group, to know which channel to use. That is a full-time job for somebody who is doing nothing else, and obviously who can speak Chinese, to follow this development. And if you ask an agency, okay, if they can do this for you, well, you're in the position of a tourist coming to a foreign country and to a restaurant and asking the waiter what the waiter would recommend. Probably the waiter would not recommend the cheapest dish, and so the social media agencies will also be careful that they're recommending to do activities where they get the biggest commissions and so on. So therefore, it is something which is very fast in development. It is important, but the best thing is to support your customers, your fans, to tell their peers about how wonderful your place is, and for instance with live streaming and supporting that, and they will know what are the best channels for their friends where they are active. Depends on the age, the education level, the sophistication, the experience with traveling, and many more. So live streaming, very important. And again, so you can see here, these are the 13 top platforms for live streaming in China. You see Xiaohongshu and Kuaishou on the top, but then there are Bilibili has been number 6, has been moving up very fast. But there, I have to say, there are some. I have to admit, I never saw Inke before, or I never saw Baiguang, number 12. So these are new live streaming platforms which have developed, and especially during the pandemic, that became much more important. And you can see a lot of marketing for selling cosmetics and stuff like that. This is all now live streaming, and so of course, if you have somebody visiting your destination, your attraction, your museum, whatever, to support that the visitors are doing some live streaming right from the location, that is certainly well invested money. So that's as an overview how the situation is, and how the way to use social media and social media marketing. And that would be it for the moment from my side. So I will see that I can, oops. Okay, so that I stop the screen. And Laura, can you take over? Laura?
I think he can't hear us.
Okay.
we are going to do it a minute.
So that is for the moment, the end of my presentation
Yes.
for the moment, and I would like to invite our 3 best practice example guests, and the first one is GSA. Oh my God! Help me. Altitude. Yeah, sorry. So and coming to us from Lisboa, if I'm not mistaken.
Tiago is in
And after that, we will have Magdalena from Planet and based in Madrid, and Anita Chen, who is joining us from Hong Kong. Tiago, if you want to start.
Hello, Tiago. We can hear you.
Oh, you can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. I was just saying good morning, buenos dias, everyone. So yes, as Professor Wolfgang correctly said, I'm currently based out of Lisbon. So my name is Tiago. As a brief introduction of myself, over the past 10 years, I was working with Amadeus. I believe you are all familiar with Amadeus, is the biggest travel technology company based out of Madrid. During that time, I was mostly working in travel intelligence and advertising for destinations. I had the opportunity to work across several sites. My last position was out of Bangkok, where I was having the Amadeus for Destinations business unit. And in that context, I had the opportunity to work closely with the Chinese market, particularly from a point of view of travel intelligence and advertising. More recently, I've left Amadeus and I've joined a travel intelligence agency called GTS Altitude. I'll try to share my video. Are you able to see this? Are you able to?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, and just to make the transition and as an introduction from my background in terms of big data to what travel intelligence from a more broad perspective. Big data is great to tell you what is happening, where is happening, when is happening, but is very poor at telling you why is that happening and who is driving those behaviors, particularly now in a privacy first world where most of the big data needs to be anonymized and aggregated. And at the end of the day, what people want to know, particularly from destination perspective and from a marketing perspective, is who do I need to talk to? And big data from that perspective is quite limited. And this is what I was experiencing while I was on Amadeus. It has one of the best big data sets in the world of travel, particularly when it comes to flights. So you are really able to understand who. So when are searches being done from an origin to a destination, from when is that happening, the variations. But it's very poor at telling you why is that happening? Why are there big increases in variations from origin destinations, and who is driving those changes? And this is why I've joined GTS. And GTS is we are based out of Singapore. We are very focused on the Asia Pacific region, and the value that we're bringing to the market and what is really unique is that we are bringing a hybrid approach to travel intelligence needs, where we have access to different big data sources, whether it's flight, whether it's social sentiment, whether it's searches. I will give you an overview of the type of data that we have. But we also combine traditional market research technology methodologies. So mainly surveys, encuestas, where you are able to go out and ask people what they are not yet showing and is not revealing from a big data perspective, but it's still living in their mind. And particularly now, from in a post-COVID world or a new normal world, everything has changed, and you cannot really base your decision making and your perception of the world based on what was there before. So there's a new normal, and you need to understand how people are thinking, how they are planning their holidays in this new normal, and the best way to do that is go out and ask them. So that is the part of primary research that GTS Altitude is bringing in combination with travel intelligence. So I think one of our biggest visit card is having worked with Tourism Australia research for the past 20 years. As many of you might acknowledge, Tourism Australia is a bit seen as the gold standard in destination marketing and in destination intelligence. And it has been GTS Altitude that has been working with this organism for the past 20 years, developing most of their methodologies and tools when it comes to travel intelligence. What type of tools? So we have developed all of their methodology for travel monitors. So Tourism Australia, every quarter, they are deploying surveys in every in their top 18 source markets. So they are able to understand and they ask people, when are you planning to travel? Where are you planning to go? What is driving your interest? And then they go one level down and say, okay, what do you think about Australia? Why would you come to Australia? Why wouldn't you come to Australia? So they understand the barriers. And what is interesting to you about Australia? It might be the outback, might be the beaches. And then very, very importantly, we ask these people, who are you? And we get the social demographics. And all of a sudden, Tourism Australia has the blueprint to communicate to their marketing teams and to their marketing agencies things like, in Germany, the most likely segments that are more interested to come to Australia are, let's just say, the plus 60 years old, and they are interested in the outback. And this is how they buy travel in travel agencies or offline or direct in the airline. And that gives a blueprint in terms of advertising. Okay, we are going to talk with these people, with this content. We are going to do these trade partnerships. And of course, the big data part comes afterwards when you want to monitor things. But that foundational level of intelligence that you need to deploy to define all of your communication strategy and even positioning strategy and trying to define basic issues in your destination, because they might say, oh, I would like to go to Australia, but there's a lack of connectivity or it's very expensive. So that gives a very strong signal to Tourism Australia that from a policy perspective and from a partnership perspective, their number one problem that they need to solve is actually talking with the airlines. And the only way for you to find this is really to go out and ask people. So we have developed this methodology for Tourism Australia. And of course, for Tourism Australia, we have also worked on the big data side of things, where we have provided to Tourism Australia global sets of flight data. So they are able to understand which origin destinations are flying to them. And of course, and to the purpose of this destination, we have access to Travel Sky data. So Travel Sky data is a bit the equivalent of Amadeus in China. And as you know, in China, everything is very specific. Many of the global players have limitations in working in China. You're probably familiar with WeChat. That is, let's say, an equivalent of Facebook. Also in travel, there's an equivalent of Amadeus in China, that is Travel Sky. And Travel Sky powers the majority of the bookings and of the Chinese travel industry. So you want to understand which are the most important origin destinations coming out of China, coming into your market. You need to have access to Travel Sky data. And for the majority of the destinations in Asia, and for many also in Europe, more and more so, and particularly from 2019, China was one of the most significant markets. In many Asian destinations, it accounts for 40-50% of their total visits. Often, as you know, they are one of the segments that spends more. So it's very, very important to have the best data set for China outbound travel, and we have access to that, and we have provided that to Tourism Australia and other destinations. And of course, more important than that is what do you do with the data? And that itself, it's great. You normally have forward-looking bookings, so you are able to understand, okay, people are already booking now for December or for Q1, but you normally also need, for planning perspective, you also need to have, let's say, 12 months visibility. So you need to do forecasts. And that's also one of our expertises. So in part of our team, we have consultants that, for instance, they do all of the forecasting for the Reserve Bank of Australia. So every time the Reserve Bank of Australia wants to change the exchange rate and wants to understand what is the impact this is going to have in our economy in terms of consumer confidence, unemployment rate, and all of those variables, we model that for them. And what we have done for Tourism Australia is that we've brought these very advanced forecasting methodologies that, because as an economy, it's an open system, we've also brought this approach into travel because it's also an open ecosystem, and there are many, many things that impact travel. oil prices, because that's the main indicator of ticket prices. There is consumer confidence, there is events, there is exchange rates. So we've started with a model that has around 100 variables. The base is flight data, Amadeus data, Travel Sky data, and we are able to forecast for Tourism Australia with 94% accuracies arrivals. Of course, this was 2019. This was pre-COVID. Now that project is on hold. No one can really do forecasting right now. So please don't ask me to forecast Chinese outbound travelers over the next months, because right now the borders are still closed. But we can expect that as soon as the borders open and as the situation starts to normalize, we will be able also to deploy these methodologies, this IP that we have developed for many destinations. So we are able to forecast passenger volumes between origin and destinations. So this is a bit of what we do, as I mentioned, we are bringing, as an agency, we are bringing an approach that is quite innovative in a market where we are combining different types of tools, different types of sources of data and intelligence, whether they are big data. So for instance, when you see their social listing, when you see their Google, Baidu searches. So again, for the particular purpose of the Chinese market, we have access to all of, let's say, the keyword searches that people are searching in Baidu. That is the equivalent of Google in China. So for instance, when we are able to understand if they are looking for Spain something, Andalusia something, Andalusia hotels. Okay, when they're speaking for Andalusia, are they looking for hostels, 5 stars? So we are able to understand the volumes. And when they are looking for Andalusia, we are also able to understand, okay, are they looking for this type of activities? So we are able also to quantify that, to drive, okay, what is driving the interest in terms of activities, in terms of accommodations, in terms of all sorts of travel-related activities. So we would be able to monitor that. Also, we are able, social listening is very interesting because it also gives you a bit of a perception. So what are people talking and sharing when it comes to a particular destination from a Chinese market, for instance? We are able to do this globally, but from the particular point of the Chinese market, we would be able to understand, okay, what is the perception? What is the reputation of this particular destination in the Chinese market? What are the positive items that we should capitalize, and what are the concern barriers that we should also address? And this is the whole spectrum of intelligence that we have here, is what we are able to deliver to a destination. And I think it's very important also, as a final note, it's very important to differentiate data from intelligence. Intelligence is something that is actionable, that solves a particular need that you are going to use for decision making. So often, when we come into a destination or a partner, we never talk about data sets. We never talk about intelligence. We talk about problems. And then we talk about, okay, what information would you need to solve that problem? And from there, then we reverse engineer and say, okay, for that, you would need these data sources with this intelligence on top, and that would provide you the questions to your answer. So that's a bit in a nutshell what we do. I'd be happy to have a later discussion if you are interested to know more, and if you think that what we do can be particularly interesting to help your recovery strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Thiago. I think this is quite impressive, and I can only underline what you have been saying, that from our experience, many destinations, many organizations, they have only a rather limited idea about who are the Chinese customers and what triggers what decisions from the Chinese customers, and that you need this full picture, and you need both data and intelligence for that. So I think thank you for this introduction. And well, you're based, I think most of our listeners are based in Spain, and so you're not far away, and I think you even speak Spanish. So
I speak very good Portuñol. It's not yet Spanish, but
that will help as well. Thank you very much, and
welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, and with this, let's move on to our second best practice example guest, and this is Mr. Jorge Esteban. and he is the general manager of Planet in Spain. So, okay, there you are. So, and let's listen to what he can tell us about another aspect, which is, of course, mobile payments and the latest development in that area.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Buenos días a todos. Yes, it's a very important process. The payment is a very delicate phase in the shopper journey. You know. Let me share my screen and let me know if you can see.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let me short introduction about me. I'm Jorge Esteban. I'm the country manager of Planet Payment in Spain. I have more than 25 years experience in this payment sector, and I have seen how this company grew from the beginning of the activity in Spain. We starting selling only one product. I don't know if some of you know, but it's the tax refund to the tourists. But now, and after the years and many years in doing a huge investment in innovation, technology, and new acquisitions in the payments sector, we can say that our products cover all the payments journey of the shoppers. For us, as a payment partner, our goal is to help our clients in different sectors, in retail, hospitality, restaurants, to improve their customer payments experience. The moment of the payment is one of the most important and delicate phases that our customers and their shoppers are involved. So our products simplify this moment at all stages of the payment process, from the acquiring, processing, the currency conversion, and the tax refund. Also, our value-added services offer highly targeted campaigns to drive spenders to your business, and bespoke training designed for increase your international sales conversions and spend. In summary, we are an end-to-end partnership to attract, engage, and convert footfalls in sales. Mobile wallet adoption and use is poised for major growth in the next few years in Asia Pacific region, and thereby displace traditional payments as cash or credit card. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the trend as a mobile payment has emerged as one of the few areas in the world payment industry that has seen a positive impact from the pandemic, according to the global data and leading data and analytics company. Asia Pacific markets like China, India have been aggressively promoting mobile wallets, putting them in place far ahead than their Western counterparts. Other markets within the region are also catching up with countries like Thailand and Vietnam, now emerging as the top adopters of mobile wallets globally. According to the latest global data 2021 Financial Service Consumer Survey, Thailand emerged as a top country globally in terms of mobile wallet adoption, with more than 93% survey respondents indicating that they had a mobile wallet and used it in a shop in the past 12 months. Thailand is followed by other Asian markets like Vietnam, India, or Hong Kong. Not only the adoption level in the region is much higher compared to many of the developing markets such as US or UK, the speed was pre-smartphone adoption in these countries, with adoption levels standing only in 24 36% respectively. So with mobile wallet use on rise, banks and payment service providers like us are all gearing up to get a piece of mobile wallet pie. For instance, in China, WeChat Pay and Alipay are the most preferred mobile wallet brands, with more than 75% of active users applying these apps to pay in the stores. This is according to our latest global data 2021. This is why Planet today offers acquiring for Chinese wallets through different channels. Our Pay by Link solution, for example, simplifies the online payments process immediately. It's not necessary any development. It's not necessary any investment from the stores to require this service. Our POS terminals, as you can see in the screen, they have a camera. I can read QR codes. Remember that the mobile payments always use barcodes or QR codes. This terminal can read these QR codes and process the payment with Alipay and WeChat Pay. Also, we process UnionPay, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all in the same terminal. But if you want, we can provide all international shopping services such as pay in your currency or DCC, multi-divisa, and tax refund. This terminal can create the voucher that can help to the tourists to recover the VAT from their purchase. For instance, Alipay users can find your store in their app with our channel marketing campaigns, pay at the terminal, and even receive the tax refund in the store, all in the same place, in the moment, and in real time, and only in a few seconds. So we improve a lot of the payment journey and the payment experience for these Asia Pacific customers. All transactions can be followed in real time through an access to a merchant portal where you can play with your data, creating reports that can provide you with a key information and a value information about the trends and profile of your shoppers. But how a perfect customer experience for Chinese tourists sounds like? We start by talking to them about our destinations in their own language, by using their own channels and platform. Remember that they use their own channels. It's completely different to the European channels. We attract them to our hotels, stores, restaurants, and cultural sites, and we keep talking to them in their own language. We are able to adapt our selling ceremony to their culture, and they are ready to pay. We have their preferred payment method that is really important, especially in this part of the world. And we increase their engagement by offering them additional services. The benefits of paying in their own currency, for example, with the best exchange rate, of course, and the incentive to spend more by offering Chinese payments VAT refunds in real time in the stores. And as a closing, I would like to share with you a video. It's a testimonial for one of most important clients that are using in this moment our solution in Spain. It's a French sport brand called Le Coq Sportif. In this merchant, we provide with a full acquiring service through all-in-one terminal. So let me share with you the video. You can see my screen. Can you see?
No, todavía no, not yet.
Okay. Perhaps
Seguimos con la aplicación. ¿Has compartido una sola aplicación o toda la pantalla?
Toda la pantalla. Quizá dejo de compartir y vuelvo, ¿no?
Vale.
Sí.
Si el vídeo tiene audio, recuerda de dar a la sección de optimizar automáticamente y elegir optimizar para movimiento y vídeo cuando
Ok.
compartas la pantalla.
Ok. A ver.
A la derecha encontrarás la opción.
Vamos a ver.
Ahora vemos el vídeo, sí.
Perfecto.
Una vez más, el reto es, a día de hoy, para las tiendas de calle, crear tráfico y hacer que clientes o que potenciales clientes vengan a visitarnos. Gracias al departamento de marketing de Planet y al acompañamiento que nos brindan, a día de hoy podemos llegar al teléfono móvil directamente de todos estos turistas asiáticos que funcionan con todo el aplicativo de WeChat y Alipay. Para nosotros es altamente esperanzador y prometedor poder esperar incrementar nuestras cifras de tráfico y también de facturación final gracias a esos turistas que nos conocen pero que a lo mejor no saben que estamos a 2 manzanas donde se ubican ellos. Para nosotros en Le Coq Sportif era muy importante ser plenamente operativos y muy rápidos a la hora de cerrar las transacciones. Toda la herramienta que nos ofrecía Planet nos permite serlo.
Bueno, pues nada más. Muchísimas gracias. Agradeceros la oportunidad que nos habéis brindado y espero que bueno, la información que os hemos facilitado os ayude. Thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity. And back to you, Professor.
Okay, yes. Jorge, thank you so much. I think that's very impressive. And I think this is also very much in line what we have been saying before, that probably it is much better invested money to work with you and to put content into the information which people are looking at when they are using this ecosystem, because this is what is useful information and helping them in their shopping. So this is probably better than to have a wonderful video and put it somewhere on the social media, hoping that somebody will look at it. And also, this is something, as you, I think, very important point that, as you have pointed out, this is before, during, and after the trip. And I think from my experience and from our research, especially the part after the trip, very few companies, very few destinations are taking care of the Chinese visitors after they return to China. And I will talk about this in a moment with my own best practice example. But for the moment, thank you so much for joining us. And if there are any questions, I know that you have another appointment now. But if there are any questions from the audience, just put them into the chat, and you will be answered later. Thank you very much. And with this, let's come to somebody far away in Hong Kong. Anita, thank you very much for joining us. It's actually dinner time in Hong Kong, but thank you for postponing your dinner a bit for us. And go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Butgan. I am going to share my presentation first. Okay.
We can see it. Thank you.
Perfect. So let me get started. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about capturing revenue opportunity for hotels and tourism operators from China outbound tourism using WeChat mini program. I'm your presenter today, Anita Chan, CEO of Campus Edge. So very quickly, who we are about Campus Edge. We are an award-winning market company for the China market, specialized in hospitality and tourism industry. Okay, so what exactly is WeChat mini program? So most of us know about WeChat in some ways. Some use it for instant messaging, some use it for social media, some use it for e-commerce, some use it like a live streaming channel. And especially, we just heard about payment, some use it for WeChat Pay for payment as well. So WeChat is an ecosystem, and WeChat mini program is part of the ecosystem. It is sub-app smaller than 10 megabytes that run within the WeChat ecosystem. The interesting thing is it doesn't need to be downloaded. You use it when you need to, and then when you're done, then they are gone. So there's no 100% equivalent of what WeChat mini program is in the Western world. But I'm going to give you a quick example. For example, we went out to rent a bike. In the West, they will give you the instruction to download an app. So if you're traveling, if you're lucky to get a data plan, you download the app, and then you have to register. You have to get an account. And then after that, you have to tag in your credit card before you can take the bike and ride. And that, very smooth, may take about 10 minutes. But for WeChat mini program, basically you open up your phone, WeChat, you scan the QR code because it's all interconnected in the WeChat ecosystem. You take the bike and go in 10 seconds. So that's the convenience, and that's the beauty of WeChat mini program. So I have provided some data from the latest report from Quest Mobile in August 2021 with the latest number on WeChat mini program. It reached 1 billion monthly active users in August 2021 with an 84.6% penetration. So you can see from the yellow bar, it's increasing steadily every month, and that's no surprise. But when I look at the chart, what got my attention is actually there are months that the penetration are higher than others. So I highlighted for you like October in 2020 and January in 2021. And that's the time, that was the Golden Week in China, as well as Chinese New Year in China. That's the time when Chinese travel, when people move, when domestic travel is happening. So you can see when people move, when people travel, the usage and the penetration of WeChat mini program becomes higher. And then the other interesting data that I spotted and highlighted for you is you can see in February 2020 that we all remember the time that was when the COVID-19 first broke out. And that's a spike there. There are 195 WeChat mini program, superstar program with monthly active user more than 10 million. And then it goes down and averaging to about 115 in August 2021. It is not hard to imagine why, because at that time, no one wants to get out. Everyone doing everything online, from grocery shopping, paying the bills and everything. So those superstar mini programs become very important. But that also accelerates the usage of WeChat mini program. And it actually definitely accelerates digitalization. As the two previous speakers talked about. Because of COVID, the good thing is now everyone goes online, and it also helped with the mini program penetration. And then for those who do not know, WeChat mini program is relatively new. It got started in 2017, but if you look at the annual transaction, it's like doubling every year. And it processed a total of 1.6 trillion RMB, equivalent to 247 billion US dollar in annual transaction in 2020. So we can be quite confident that WeChat mini program, if you invest in this technology product, it is not going to go away. It's going to be more dominant in the years to come. Okay, so I've also included 3 interesting trends that fit into the post-COVID world. First of all, is contactless solution. So because they just scan a QR code and then you do everything on your phone, it just fit in what the world is looking at right now. We want some contactless solution. And then the second one is actually F&B, food and beverage, food delivery is always one of the most popular industry that benefit or that use WeChat mini program the most. And it is important amid and post COVID-19. And then the last trend is, it may surprise you or not, actually the majority of WeChat mini program transactions are under 155 US dollar, around 1,000 RMB. So unless you are a very luxury brand, a well-known brand like Louis Vuitton or Burberry, then you may see high ticket sales. But in general, WeChat mini program benefit or applicable to SMEs, to small, medium business. And because that's the amount that Chinese are really comfortable to transact using WeChat mini program. And that's why we create and we build this technology solution for the hospitality industry. So what we do is we build WeChat mini program that surrounds or touch every touch points when Chinese travel, from dining, ordering food delivery, in-room service, shopping, whether it's to buy it from a boutique shop, souvenir, or you order champagne or flowers in-room, or you play, you want to book a spa ticket, you want to book an event ticket, you want to book an excursion, and of course, some for like hotel stay. And this is a real example of our WeChat mini program for an independent hotel. So you can see we touch on all aspects, from the room to transportation. So now maybe they are not comfortable to take a taxi to the airport. They may opt to take a hotel limo. The restaurants booking, the excursion, and the champagne and stuff. And one of the important aspects, as the last speaker also mentioned, is payment. Our WeChat mini program is actually mobile payment integrated. And that is very important because WeChat Pay is definitely something that overseas companies are definitely trying to get. And the mini program making it transactional. So it's not just for inspiration. It's not just when you see it, okay, then you find some ways to buy it. You see it, you get it, you pay, and then it's done. So that is very transactional. So it comes to the end of my presentation. So doing some crystal ball prediction, how the future of WeChat mini program for China outbound tourism be when border reopens. Of course, we are optimistic because, as I said, contactless solution is what everyone's looking at post-COVID, and WeChat mini program just fit the bill. And because of COVID, it actually accelerates the penetration of the WeChat mini program. So now, not only the Gen Z or the young people or people in the first tier city know how to use WeChat mini program, but everyone, including the silver generation, including all lower tier city, they all are using WeChat mini program, and that's going to continue whenever they travel, whenever they have the opportunity to use it, they will use it. And then the last one is definitely WeChat Pay. WeChat Pay is the key to transact and mini program facilities. And you can think of the renting the bike example that I just used before. So thank you very much for your time. If you want to know more about our WeChat mini program, I've done an interview with Professor Wigan, and the video is on YouTube. And you can also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you, Anita. Very, very interesting. And I think this is another example that how you can use social media by understanding how the Chinese are using social media and in your services into that. And many programs certainly, as you have been showing us, have been doubling year by year in size and number and in turnover. And so rather than asking where is the best place to put my advertisement, it is, I think we had three very good examples that you said, okay, to spend some of your resources to understand exactly and being able to forecast where the customer is coming from, what will change their behavior, and then entering the ecosystem of Planet for all these payment offers and the ecosystem of a mini program like Anita's Campus Edge company is offering, where you are actually at a place and you can put your information at a place where your customers are looking at them and where they find them. And I think the key point is really what you showed, that this is something that you don't have this split between information and buying, but that this is can be done in one quick way. Laura, you want to say something?
No. I was just connecting with Anita's final presentation. Just waiting also for your final remarks. I'm not sure if you would like to add anything else, or you would like to jump into the Q&A part.
No, there's still one. Sorry, there's still one part.
No,
my
definitely.
side. There's still one part from my side to come before we do the Q&A. But yes, of course, it's good to remind people that that this is that they should already think about their questions. So with this, can you see?
Yes, but I believe you have to minimize your image.
the webcam.
Yes, I have to do this again. Here we go. Okay, now it's better, right? Okay, so well, after these three examples, how to enter different parts of the online world, I want to show you something. Another, I mean, have you talked about ecosystems before? The Planet ecosystem, the mini program ecosystem. There's another one called O+ ecosystem, and I want to show you this as an example of how you can combine online and offline. Okay, so O+ is a Chinese-Finnish company based in Tampere, and so what they are doing is that they, among other things, they have an app which is for shopping, and it's also WeChat based. So just what you learned from Anita. So you don't have to download it, but you just use this within WeChat, which has, as we heard before, 1.25 billion active users around the world. And with this, you can reach Chinese shoppers around the world. There are also some showrooms physically, but for us, let's concentrate on the shop. And there's also besides the digital promotion, there is a fair once a year, and so you can of course use other channels within social media as well. So for us, the most interesting part is to use your tourism marketing through regional products. And as you can see, I choose products from Andalusia for that. So with this app, which is especially concentrating on regional products connected to tourism, outbound tourism. So you can sell souvenirs, art, handicrafts, maybe also some bulky items which are too big to transport by the tourists. You can sell food and beverages, and of course you can also add printed touristic information or a QR code if you have a cuddly toy and you put a QR code into the ear of the bear or something like that. And this is a way where you can combine selling products, and this is of course EU SME Centre we are working with, and this is especially for SMEs who do not have the opportunity to develop their own sales channels in China, which is much too complicated and too expensive for the majority of SMEs. So, but in the combination of small companies and their special regional products and tourism marketing, so you can actually earn money from tourism promotion. And I know that at the moment, many DMOs, many attractions have the problem that they say, well, after the hard time we went through, our budget is limited and China is still closed. So we want to keep in touch with the Chinese market, but we don't have much money for that. And so as we discussed today, instead of spending the money on producing a video or subtitling in Chinese a video you did for other markets, which normally doesn't work at all. This is a way where you can actually earn money from your tourism marketing. And so that can be, of course, this has been done for a long time, especially with food and beverages, that you are combining the wine of your region or the cheese or craft beer or sausages or whatever is special. And that's also an opportunity for those offering, for instance, wine tasting tours, that you can sell the wine to your visitors later on because they want to keep the supply so they can show their friends what they have learned about this specific wine. And the good news is that with the sales, there's nothing to do for the local company. So all after there's an agreement, so some forwarding company will take the products from you, and so you don't have to fill out any custom papers, and you're not concerned with the sales process in China at all. So all you do is give the products, and a couple of months later find the money agreed before on your bank account. So it is absolutely hassle-free because obviously to find out what are the regulations to import alcoholic beverages into China, what health certificates do we need, and so on and so on. All this is not necessary for you to learn, and I'm sure most SMEs have other things to bother about than that. And also, as the company is working with a bonded warehouse, so there's no need to pay custom duties or import taxes before the product is actually sold. And well, we heard from Thiago the importance of data. You can also actually use this for market research. So because if you have 500 customers who bought the sherry from Jerez, then you can specifically go to them and say, hey, next year we do a music festival. What kind of music would attract you to come, maybe when you come again to Spain, to come to the music festival, or any other market research question. And of course, as this is based on sales, so you know in which city people are living, how old they are, what is their gender, how much money they have been spending on this kind of products. So you have some idea how affluent they are. So all this is giving you very focused and very precise information about what your potential customers are looking for. So I give an example, craft beer, big trend in China. So this is from, I put this quote from a media company website, and these guys are helping companies to sell craft beer in China. And says, okay, what do you have to do? You have to have a website in China, in Mandarin. You have to do search engine optimization for the Chinese Google, Baidu, so in Chinese. You need to do PR and some forums in Chinese. You have to play this social media, all this in Chinese. So that's, if these are the requirements, normally that's the end of the story for most SMEs. It's much too complicated. And if you look on the right-hand side, this is a screenshot from Baidu, and you see, wow, look, I'm supposed to compete with Corona and Carlsberg and Budweiser and Heineken. Are you crazy? That's not for me. So, and also from a DMO point of view, okay, let's to use craft beer as a marketing instrument for our region, because especially younger Chinese people are interested in that. Good idea, but how to do that? So therefore, so this is something which looks attractive, but well, can't be done. So with this app, you have the opportunity that you are either selling as a DMO, you sell your own merchandise, or you sell you team up with local products. So some company making handmade castagnettes, selling them in the market. So, and you can do this basically without a budget and maybe even earning money in the process. So as a perfect way to keep in touch with the Chinese outbound markets, so that after the pandemic, when they start traveling, that they will know where to go. And for the craft beer breweries, of course, it is something where they don't need market intelligence. They don't need to translate any information into Chinese or deal with the customs or so. All this is done by the organization who is running the app. And of course, the key point will be that this is catering to the demand of authenticity and of connection to the tourism experience. And this experience can be reliving previous experiences or substitute for those people who might just dream about traveling to, let's say, Spain, but don't have the money at the moment. And well, you can see on the right-hand side, craft beer market is really a huge market. There are more than 1,000 Chinese craft beer breweries in China, but of course also international craft beers are sold. And well, you can see there the price of a craft beer bottle in a pub in Shanghai is about 10 times the price of what you buy for a normal beer, a Chinese beer in a supermarket. And we said, well, combining online and offline. So taking this example, you can, in China, you have, since 2010, you have craft beer festivals, but they are normally with Chinese craft beer brands only, and of course it's very attractive if there can be more international brands. And so you can use this to get your brand known in China, to create a fan club, and it's not a one-off thing, but you can of course later on sell craft beers through the app to those people who learned about this when they were visiting the craft beer festival. And you can also turn this around and say, okay, now you're a fan of craft beer from this region. So how about you go there and visit the region, so that people take this actually as a argument for their decision when then come next time to Europe, where they are traveling to, that they say, okay, I want to go there because they have invited me there. It will be a craft beer road trip where I can meet the brewers in person, or I can see the fields where the ingredients are coming from, and so on. So this is an example with beer, but of course it also works with wine for our Spanish participants. If you're more interested in that, you can do obviously the same thing also with a wine festival. So something like this has been done before. I remember Apulia in Italy has done for years a combination of olive oil and tourism and many other examples. But the interesting part here is that with the help of such an app integrated into WeChat, you can not do this just as a one-off, but you can continuously selling the product afterwards and connecting tourism information with the product, connecting market research with the product in an ever-growing way. So I hope that from these examples you have gained some base for creating your own ideas. So to sum up the last slide, so how can we prepare for a more sustainable offer for the new wave of post-pandemic Chinese visitors. And so we have a program called Advantage Tourism, where we do this for the Chinese, not only, but of course, first of all, for the Chinese market. So step one is very simple: listen to your customers. So find out about what they think is very good quality. So different source markets, segments. So and do product adaptation, train your staff accordingly. Second step, or your customers. So have your customers very satisfied with your offers, not just so satisfied. So by really understanding what they want. At the same time, in most cases, this will also mean that you can offer year-round services, which will also create year-round jobs for your staff. And the seasonality is, I think, in many destinations, the elephant in the room, which make tourism jobs less attractive. And also, with that, you will have a bigger chance that the host communities welcome Chinese visitors if you are rather looking for qualitative KPIs than for simply quantitative KPIs, so that this will be the point of satisfaction, which will then lead to recommendation, so that online your Chinese visitors will recommend you. KOCs is the word we learned for that. And that means that you will have customer retention, so some of them might actually come back, but more importantly, even that you have peer group recommendations, so that the satisfied or very satisfied customers you have, that they will tell their friends about this with the help of live streaming or other, so that you will have also their friends and colleagues and acquaintances and virtual contacts coming to your place, which leads in the end to a higher level of yields. Customers will stay longer, they will spend more. You will lower your marketing costs, and you will have higher margins. And of course, you will have a better destination and a better brand image, which in the end means more money in your pocket at the end of the day. So I hope that you got some ideas how to move forward in such a new normal approach. And with that, let's finish here, and let's spend the last 15 minutes or so we have on questions you might have developed. And just let me tell you that we have a free weekly little newsletter, which is called Coterie Weekly, and we also have a podcast which is called Coterie Talks, and so you can also go to journalupland.com and you will find the podcast there. Okay.
You are mute, Laura.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. And also thank you very much for all the guest speakers that came and showcased their activities and their businesses with us, that give us a very good idea of things that could be done in the fields of ICT and tourism. From our side, as you mentioned, at the EU SME Centre, we are very aware that the ICT sector plays a major role in tourism, travel and hospitality, and this is the reason why today with Andalucía Lab, we decided to organize this event. And now, as the professor mentioned, we have 10 minutes for the Q&A part. Perhaps I would like to start with you, Professor Alt, if you want, while coordinating the questions.
Please.
The first one is, you talked about KOLs, which everybody knows that this is a very important trend in China, slightly different from what we see here in the Western part. And you talk about KOCs, which is a relatively new topic or new concept. Considering the KOC's role in the China consumers landscape, which kind of programs or apps do you think that they are the best way to work with them?
Yes, well, I think I mentioned Xiaohongshu, so the Little Red Book, because it is the structure, how it is made. It is that you can also see things like outside your own group, whereas WeChat, and this is something many people don't realize, that that in WeChat you have to actually actively join a group to see information, and if you don't join the group, you don't see the information. Whereas in Xiaohongshu, it works with hashtags like we are used to this maybe from Twitter or so. So therefore, this is the main platform, but it can also be a WeChat group, because this is really something which is not commercial. So ideally, as I tried to say at the end, ideally that the KOCs will be your satisfied customers, and they want to tell their friends, "Wow, look, these people are so nice here, and they did something especially for the Chinese market, and the product was adapted, or they have somebody who can speak Chinese, or they did something special for us," so that they are happy to share this information with their friends, and you don't actually have to pay them for that. So of course, it's a good idea to give them the technical ability, or if they say they want to do a live stream to tell everybody how interesting this museum is, then if you have somebody from the museum administration, the vice director or somebody coming down for 5 minutes, and so they can do a selfie with them in the live stream, which makes it more prestigious, or any of these kind of things. So that will be impressive. In the end, it is simply word of mouth. I mean, this is if you think, oh, I want to go to East Africa, but I don't know if I want to go to Kenya or to Tanzania, and you have a friend who has been to all these places, this will be a very important source of information, that he will tell you, well, if you're more after the animals, well, maybe Kenya, but if you're more after local customs and local music and dance, maybe Tanzania is better. This will be very important information for you, because this guy has been there and you trust this person. He knows your taste. So, and this is the same thing. The only difference is now that in a digital world, and in a world in China where people are much more connected, and then networking is even more important as with us, that this is now not only talking physically with each other, but this is also talking online and putting this information online. So, and you have there are also, of course, the other platforms for that are Mafangwo and Xiongyo, QYR. These are the two main platforms where people are exchanging information and sharing their experiences. So that is, of course, also something where KOCs are playing a role. But this is it is something where you have, and you, of course, and you can trigger these things. You can make a monthly competition, the best photo from your holiday to Sevilla, and so if they if they send you their photo, then you will take the 10 best ones and you will publish them on your website, and the and they get a bottle of wine from Sevilla, which you can use the O+ app to actually send to them in China, so that you also give them some incentive to do something, or you can put this 10 photos up and say, okay, people can vote for this, which photo the viewers like the best, and then you will have even more people.
Thank you very much, Professor. There is also a question for Anita. I think this is still online. Anita, can you confirm if you are still here with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, great. Anita, the question is as follows. WeChat is a closed platform. Everybody knows that. How can WeChat mini programs can be found by Chinese tourists?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for the question. Like Professor Wood can say, it's important to get WeChat mini program discovered both online and offline. So, you have to double the effort. For example, online, again, like Professor Wood can say, you need to be in, what we call the private traffic. You need to be in groups. So other than the official accounts that a company may have, from friends circle, from private group, from other WeChat mini programs, all the referral. There are a lot of entry points into WeChat mini program online. But more importantly, as we do not have all the money in the world to do, online advertising, especially on WeChat, it's important that the companies who have the WeChat mini program to promote them offline. It's important, for example, in the hotel to have, the QR code at the reception in the rooms so they can actually scan and use the service, or even walking in the shop to do the payment and everything. So both online and offline combined will get WeChat mini program discovered in many ways for overseas tourists.
Thank you very much, Anita. I also have a question for Magdalena, as I believe the speaker Jorge already left. Magdalena, I saw you were replying to some questions online.
Yes.
Are you still with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because I joined as an invitee and I wasn't sure that that it was sound available, and that's why I was replying through the chat window. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that. There is another question. It's about the pay by link. How does it work? What is it, and who is it for?
It's a very interesting payment options for those hospitality businesses, for instance, or merchants as well, that want to jump into the Chinese payments ecosystem without adapting their e-commerce or without having any e-commerce, in fact, to accept and process payments through WeChat or Alipay, and among others. This is available on all the Occidental card schemes. But in the case of WeChat Pay, Alipay, or Union Pay, this functionality provides a convenient way for those businesses to offer secure and flexible payments just using a web link. That's why it's ideal for businesses who need to invoice for payments. So you can have this functionality available because the request for payment can be sent directly to the customer through an URL, okay, by email, without needing to build a website or any integration. So, and additionally, this can have available the optional functionality for paying in their currency, in renminbi instead of in euros. So we can add the functionality of currency conversion. So the most interesting feature of this service is that there's no need to integrate, to build a sophisticated e-commerce, to have any kind of development in place. We can do it for you on your behalf, and our Planet Merchant Services can accept and process this payment.
Okay, thank you very much, Magdalena.
You're
And
welcome.
there's a last question, Professor. I have asked this question to all the experts we have been talking to in the past few months, and this is also relates to when companies should start making preparations. When do you think that China will open the borders to allow Chinese tourists to come back to Europe again?
This is the $1 million question, obviously. Well, let me say that in springtime this year, everybody was thinking, okay, by now we will see China's outbound tourism coming back. But as we all know, it didn't happen. So there have been some very pessimistic voices saying, oh, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal saying it might be only after November 2022, after Xi Jinping got the third time elected as Secretary General of the Communist Party. But as I showed in my presentation, there are now a number of noises coming from China which seem to indicate that there is a change and that the economic cost of keeping China closed are so enormous that this is something which has to stop sooner or later. So I think realistically, as we know that for the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, no foreigners are allowed into China, and the Paralympic Games end in the middle of March. So I think realistically, we can see that maybe from April or so, the borders, maybe from March already, the borders will be open again. It might also be that this is a progress that is not all for all parts of China going to all parts of the world, but that there are some kind of bubbles or direct lanes or what have you. I think Europe is in a rather positive situation here because we have, on average in the EU, 70% are vaccinated, and so hopefully, if there's no new mutation coming in the next couple of months, Europe will go back to a more normal life where the virus will never go away. It will stay with us for 10,000 years, like the common flu is and AIDS is and so on. But that this is something manageable, that you're, and hopefully next year with some new medicines that people don't die from it anymore, that you can also not only prevent it with a vaccination, but you can also treat it so that it's still, people get sick, but they don't die anymore from it. So therefore, I think this is that should be something next spring. But the key point is, of course, to prepare for the market. This is certainly now, because now people, you can, what we discussed in the first part of the workshop a few months ago, you can do the product adaptation necessary, and also that you can well, get the information and do the training for your staff so that you are prepared and that you can tell the story to the Chinese that when they are looking for new destination, because this is something clearly many Chinese have been saying, okay, I want to go to new places, so I don't want to go again to Paris or to London or to the big cities. I want to go to new places, and even within the country, let's say for Spain, most Chinese tourists, they go to Barcelona and to Madrid, and then some go to Sevilla, to Andalusia, and that's about it. So, and then the numbers for the other parts of Spain are not very big. So, but if you give people a reason why they should go there, and I don't know, if Aragon says we have 250 different kinds of cheese, so that is something special or whatever, or for art lovers to bring them to the Basque region for the wonderful museums there. So that this is an opportunity you have now to spread the word and the word in China, and to prepare for that now, because once the big wave is starting, and I think next summer, hopefully, we will have the biggest tourism numbers in Europe ever. Also, the Europeans traveling like crazy. Now you can again. So nobody will have time anymore to do that. So I think the lack of work which we have to endure now should be used for that. So clearly, also in China, all the surveys show that the Chinese are as anxious as we are to start international travel again, and not only for leisure, also for other reasons as well. And so that therefore you can be sure once it becomes possible, and I showed some numbers about that, there will be a big wave of Chinese travelers coming, and but and also I think that the Chinese government, well, doesn't have to face elections, but still the Chinese government also have to keep people happy, and the fact, especially the rich people in the country, and the fact that you can travel internationally has been one of the points where the Chinese government has been telling their people, okay, you can't vote for the government, but you can have your private car, you can have your private company, and you can travel internationally. That is part of the agreement, and I think also that this will have to come back into force. And I think there is still, it's later than we all thought, and it has been very bad for a lot of companies. But so I think by March, April next year, we will see the first Chinese tourists coming from China into Europe.
Thank you very much. I noted that you said a little bit earlier than summer. I'm just trying to take down to see which of our experts is winning the poll. I will let you know. Hopefully it will be soon, but indeed all the signs show that, first part of 2022, it will not be. Let's aim for spring, summer next year. But it is important indeed for all the companies to start preparing right now and make sure that they are fully prepared, so that when the borders come, all the apps and all the information is in place to try to attract these tourists.
What you at the beginning you showed the services of EU SME, and that you have this quiz that you can have this self-assessment, and I would really recommend that for everybody to do that, because from the research we did, including Spain, but of course many other places as well, that you find that a lot of service providers and DMOs are saying, yes, the Chinese market is very important for us. But if you ask them, okay, how much do you know about China? How much do you know about your customers? Simple questions. Are your customers coming from the north of China, where they like sunshine? Or are they coming from the south of China, where they don't care much about sunshine? So where you can also easily tell them come in wintertime. So that this basic knowledge, what is the differences in the Chinese market with these kind of that kind of people, so that there's really, people are overestimating their knowledge of China, and so we had this discussion. For just one example, why are there's no activities to bring more Chinese people to the St. Jacob's Way, Camino de Santiago. So China is the third or fourth biggest Christian country in the world. But people say, what? But in fact, there are, depends on which numbers you believe, and 60 million or even 80 million Christian believers in China. And many of them are urban, affluent people. So, but of course, if you have not the market knowledge, this will never come to your mind, that there are lots of Christians who might be interested also to have the spiritual experience, to walk on the Camino. And this kind of things is, therefore, I think you're doing a very important job in helping people to understand China, and this starts with exactly this question: how much do I know about China, and maybe I have to learn a bit more about China than I thought.
Thank you very much again, Professor, for this insightful presentation and for being with us today. For us, this is the end of our presentation and our event. I just would like to thank again Andalucia Lab for making this platform available for us today. I have included on the chat a small survey on this form of Google Doc. If you don't mind taking a few minutes to fill it up and to let us know what you think about this event and which other China-related topics you would like to learn about, this could be very helpful for us. Last but not least, we will distribute the presentation, and there will be a recording available for all of you. Some information will follow after in the shape of an email. So please stay with us or bear with us until this happens. Well, there's nothing else to catch up on you today, but we hope to see you in next events. Muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.
Okay, thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Goodbye.
Gracias.
Bye.
Gracias. Thanks.